Hello guys, welcome to Percy and Goddess Fiction. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto, discovering he's a demigod, became Percy's new cabin mate? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Shinobi and the Sea. The midnight sky over Konoha split open with a thunderclap that rattled windows throughout the village. Naruto Uzumaki jerked awake in his modest apartment, Kanai Alr. Edi in hand before his eyes fully opened. Something felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. The air crackled with an energy he couldn't identify, neither chakra nor natural electricity. Naruto moved to his window, peering out at storm clouds that swirled in impossible patterns. The spiraling vortex centered directly above the Hokage monument, its eye pulsing with an eerie blue-green light that reminded him of chakra. Yet somehow felt ancient and unfamiliar. What the hell, he muttered, running a hand through his spiky blonde hair. The sensation crawling across his skin wasn't simply the electric anticipation of an approaching storm. It resonated within him, as if calling to something buried in his blood. Naruto dressed quickly, donning his black and orange jacket over mesh armor. As he secured his headband, a sharp pain lanced behind his eyes, bringing with it a flash of vision. Vast ocean stretching to the horizon, a massive three-pronged trident rising from the depths. The image vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving him disoriented and confused. Within the seal on his abdomen, Kurama stirred uneasily. Something approaches that is not of our world, Kit, the Nine Tails rumbled within his mindscape. It smells of salt water and divinity. Divinity, what are you talking about? Naruto asked aloud. The fox's response was drowned out by a thunderous knock at his door. He opened it to find Shikamaru. Soaked and breathless. Naruto. Hokage's orders. There's been a breach at the northeastern border. Some kind of energy disturbance unlike anything the sensor division has ever detected. Lady Tsunade wants you there immediately. Just me? Naruto asked, already gathering his gear pouch. Shikamaru's expression was grim. She specifically requested you. Said something about the energy signature. Responding to your presence in the village. Whatever that means. He shook his head. This is beyond troublesome. The atmospheric pressure is completely destabilized. And the magnetic field readings are off the charts. Naruto nodded, understanding the urgency if not the scientific jargon. I'll head out now. Be careful, Shikamaru cautioned, his typic ally lazy demeanor replaced with genuine concern. Hinata was near that sector on patrol. Her last communication mentioned strange chakra fluctuations before we lost contact. Alarm surged through Naruto. Hinata's out there. Why didn't you lead with that? Without waiting for an answer, he formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu. 3 perfect copies materialized beside him in clouds of smoke. You know what to do. Naruto instructed them. Fan out, find Hinata, and report back. The clones nodded and leapt away through the window as Naruto turned back to Shikamaru. Tell Granny Tsunade I'm on it. With that, he bounded to the rooftops, launching himself toward the village gates with chakra-enhanced speed. The storm intensified around him, rain lashing sideways with unnatural force. Lightning flashed in blue-green arcs, illuminating clouds that spiraled like massive whirlpools in the sky. As he raced through the forest beyond Konoha, Naruto felt the strange energy growing stronger, pulling at something deep within him. The sensation was neither painful nor pleasant, just insistent, like a half-remembered dream demanding recognition. 20 minutes into his journey, the memories of a dispelled shadow clone flooded his consciousness. Images of uprooted trees and scorched earth flashed through his mind, culminating in the clone's discovery of Hinata's discarded pack near a newly formed crater. Naruto altered his course, anxiety fueling his pace. The forest around him grew increasingly distorted, trees bent at impossible angles, plant life displaying bizarre mutations as if something was warping the very fabric of reality. Hinata, he called out, scanning the landscape with heightened senses. A familiar chakra signature flickered at the edge of his perception, faint but unmistakable. He changed direction, heading toward a clearing that glowed with the same eerie blue-green light he'd seen in the storm clouds. When he broke through the tree line, the sight before him defied comprehension. A massive vertical rift hung suspended in the air, its edges jagged like a tear in fabric. Through it, Naruto glimpsed flashes of an unfamiliar landscape, rolling hills, a large pine tree, and structures that resembled ancient temples. The rift pulsed rhythmically, expanding and contracting like a breathing entity. Kneeling before it, her Byakugan activated, was Hinata Hyuga. Her indigo hair whipped around her face in the swirling air currents, her pale eyes fixed on the dimensional anomaly. "Hinata," Naruto called, relieved to find her unharmed. She turned, surprise giving way to concern. "Naruto-kun, you shouldn't be here. This dimensional disturbance is reacting to your chakra." As if to confirm her words, the rift pulsed violently, expanding several feet the moment Naruto approached. The strange resonance within him intensified, becoming almost painful. "What do you mean? What is this thing?" he asked, moving cautiously to her side. Hinata deactivated her Byakugan, blinking as her eyes returned to their normal lavender hue. "I've been tracking it with my visual prowess. It's not chakra-based, at least not entirely. The energy signatures are unlike anything I've ever seen." She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "But when you came within range, Naruto-kun, it's as if it recognized you." Before Naruto could respond, movement caught his peripheral vision. 6 figures emerged from the surrounding forest, shinobi wearing no identifying headbands, their faces obscured by ceramic masks painted with unfamiliar symbols. "Targets acquired," the leader stated flatly. "The Jinchuriki and the Hyuga heiress." "Perfect." Naruto stepped protectively in front of Hinata. "Who are you? What do you want with this rift?" The leader tilted his head. "We didn't create it, Uzumaki Naruto. We merely followed it to you." He formed a series of unfamiliar hand signs. "Our master has waited millennia for this convergence." Blood of the sea god awakened at last. "Sea god? What are you talking about?" Naruto demanded, feeling Kurama's chakra stirring defensively within him. Instead of answering, the masked shinobi attacked in perfect synchronization. Naruto created a dozen shadow clones that engaged the enemies while he maintained position near Hinata, who had fallen into her gentle fist stance. 8 trigrams air palm. Hinata thrust her palm forward, sending a concentrated burst of chakra that knocked 2 attackers backward. Naruto launched a Rasengan at the leader, but the man countered with a technique Naruto had never witnessed. Water materialized from nowhere, forming a trident-shaped shield that absorbed the spiraling chakra sphere. "Impossible," Naruto muttered. Water techniques required a source, a nearby river, lake, or at minimum, moisture in the air. This man had conjured it from nothing. "Your ignorance of your heritage is tragic," the leader said, twirling the water trident. "The sea flows in your veins, yet you know nothing of its power." The fight intensified as rain began falling in torrential sheets. Strangely, Naruto felt his strength growing rather than diminishing in the downpour. His movements became more fluid, his reflexes sharper. Each raindrop seemed to whisper secrets as it touched his skin. Hinata moved with practiced grace at his side, her gentle fist strikes precise and devastating. They had fought together often enough to anticipate each other's movements, creating a seamless defense. "Naruto-kun," Hinata called between strikes, "the rift is expanding with the combat. Our chakra is feeding it somehow." She was right. The dimensional tear had nearly doubled in size, its edges crackling with energy that reached out like hungry fingers. Through it, Naruto could now clearly see a beach. Waves crashing against the shore beneath a night sky different from their own. The leader of the masked shinobi disengaged from combat, leaping toward the rift. "It's time, brothers. The convergence is upon us." He slammed his palm against the ground, creating a complex seal array that spread outward in glowing lines. The other masked attackers took positions at key points in the array, each performing identical hand signs. "Blood calls to blood, sea calls to sea," they chanted in unison. "Let what was divided become whole." The seal array erupted with blinding light. Naruto felt something tugging at his very essence, not his chakra, but something more fundamental, as if hooks had latched onto his DNA. Within his mindscape, Kurama roared in alarm. "Kit, they're trying to force a bloodline awakening. Something dormant in your genetic code. Fight it." Naruto tried to resist the pull, channeling the Nine Tails chakra to shield himself, but the foreign energy had already infiltrated too deeply. A burning sensation spread through his body, centering in his blood. Visions assaulted him in rapid succession. Vast oceans, underwater palaces, storms that could swallow continents, and always. That same trident rising from the depths. Naruto-kun. Hinata's voice seemed distant as she fought to reach him, her gentle fist dispatching 2 more masked assailants. The leader laughed. It's too late. The son of the sea awakens, and the worlds align. Through pain-blurred vision, Naruto saw the rift expand explosively, its edges now encompassing nearly the entire clearing. The seal array beneath them pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, each surge drawing him closer to the dimensional tier. Hinata, stay back, he warned, feeling control slipping as foreign power coursed through him. She ignored his warning, fighting her way to his side. I won't leave you. The leader of the masked shinobi completed a final sequence of hand signs. Our task is complete. The sea reclaims its son. A massive wave materialized from the rift, not water from the other side, but the dimensional boundary itself liquefying into a tidal surge. It crashed over Naruto and Hinata, sweeping them off their feet. Naruto grabbed Hinata's hand, desperate not to lose her in the chaos. Hold on, he shouted as they were pulled inexorably toward the rift. The masked leader made no move to follow, merely watching as they were dragged toward the dimensional boundary. Find your father, son of the sea. Fulfill the prophecy. Those were the last words Naruto heard before he and Hinata were engulfed by the rift. Sensation ceased, replaced by a weightless void. Colors swirled around them, blues and greens predominating, as they fell through what felt like liquid space. Then, abruptly, they were falling through actual air. Naruto clutched Hinata to his chest, twisting to ensure he would hit the ground first. They crashed onto a sandy beach, the impact driving the breath from his lungs. For several moments, Naruto lay stunned, the world spinning around him. Gradually, his senses returned. The air smelled different, saltier, cleaner somehow. Unfamiliar stars shone overhead, constellations he had never seen. Hinata, he gasped, suddenly remembering his companion. Are you okay? She stirred against his chest, lifting her head. A small cut on her forehead trickled blood, but she seemed otherwise unharmed. I think so. Where are we? Naruto sat up slowly, helping Hinata into a sitting position. They had landed on a beach, waves gently lapping at the shore 30 feet away. In the distance, atop a hill, stood a massive pine tree that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Beyond it, he could make out structures of white stone that reminded him of pictures he'd seen of ancient temples. I don't know, he admitted, but I think we're far from home. Hinata activated her Byakugan, scanning their surroundings. The chakra signatures here are strange. Not like anything I've seen before. She frowned. And Naruto-kun, your chakra is changing too. There's something else flowing through your network now, mixing with your normal energy. Before Naruto could respond, a low growl emanated from the darkness behind them. They turned to see a creature emerge from the tree line, something impossible that existed only in myth. It had the body of an enormous lion, but where its head should have been. A human face snarled at them, its mouth filled with pointed teeth. From its rear sprouted a scorpion's tail, dripping with venom. What the hell is that? Naruto scrambled to his feet, pulling Hinata up with him. A monster, she whispered, falling into her fighting stance. The creature, a manticore, though neither ninja knew that name, spoke in a rumbling voice. Fresh demigods, by the smell of you. It sniffed the air, its expression changing to one of confusion. No. Something different, something new. Its tail arched over its back. No matter. You'll taste just as sweet. It pounced with shocking speed. Naruto shoved Hinata aside and leapt in the opposite direction, barely avoiding the stinger that embedded itself in the sand where they had stood. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto formed his signature hand sign, and 10 copies materialized around him. They charged the monster from different angles while Naruto pulled Hinata to safety. The clones landed solid hits, but the creature seemed barely fazed by attacks that would have incapacitated a human opponent. Its hide repelled kunai-like armor, and even direct blows caused only minimal damage. Our attacks aren't working, Hinata observed, activating her Byakugan again. Its energy network is completely different from a human's or an animal's. The manticore dispatched the last of Naruto's clones and turned toward them. Saliva dripping from its human-like mouth. Interesting tricks, half-blood. But you'll need more than illusions to defeat me. Naruto felt a surge of the strange new energy Hinata had mentioned. It rose within him like a tide, demanding release. Acting on instinct, he extended his hand toward the nearby ocean. The water responded instantly, rising in a massive wave that crashed over the monster, driving it back. Both Naruto and Hinata stared in shock at what he had just done. "How did you?" Hinata began. Naruto shook his head, equally bewildered. "I don't know. I just felt it." The manticore struggled to its feet, water streaming from its mane. "A son of Poseidon," it snarled, new wariness in its eyes. "Impossible. There are only supposed to be two." It tensed to pounce again. But a silver arrow suddenly sprouted from its shoulder. The monster howled in pain as more arrows rained down, forcing it to retreat. "Back, foul creature," called a young female voice from the direction of the hill. A group of figures emerged from the darkness, teenagers, most appearing no older than Naruto himself, armed with an assortment of weapons. At our head ran a boy with sea-green eyes and dark hair, wielding a gleaming bronze sword that seemed to emit its own light. Beside him charged a blonde girl with fierce gray eyes, brandishing a knife of the same material. The manticore snarled at the newcomers, then turned to Naruto. "This isn't over, strange half-blood." With that, it bounded away into the darkness, disappearing into the trees. The teenagers approached cautiously, weapons still raised. The boy with the sword stepped forward, his sea-green eyes fixed on Naruto with a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "Who are you?" he demanded. "And how did you control the water like that?" "Only children of Poseidon can do that, and I don't have any brothers, except Tyson." Naruto positioned himself protectively in front of Hinata. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. This is Hinata Hyuga. We're shinobi from Konohagakure, and we don't know how we got here or what's going on." The blonde girl studied them with calculating eyes. "Konohagakure? I've never heard of it. And what's a shinobi?" "Ninja," Naruto clarified. "Look, we just got pulled through some kind of dimensional rift. There were these masked guys talking about sea gods and convergence, and then that thing attacked us." "Dimensional rift?" The blonde girl exchanged glances with the boy. "Percy, this sounds serious. We should take them to Chiron." The boy, Percy, nodded, but kept his sword pointed at Naruto. "How do we know this isn't some trick? The last time someone showed up with weird powers, it didn't end well for us." A taller girl with stringy brown hair and fierce eyes pushed forward. "I say we bind them and drag them to Mr. D. Let him sort it out. We're not your enemies," Hinata spoke up, her voice soft but firm. "We're just as confused as you are." Percy's eyes narrowed as he stared at Naruto. "You controlled the water. Only I can do that. And my father." "Your father?" Naruto asked. "Poseidon, god of the seas." Percy's grip tightened on his sword. "So either you're playing some kind of trick, or..." His words trailed off as a sudden glow emanated from above Naruto's head. Everyone looked up to see a holographic image materializing, a trident, glowing with sea-green light. Identical to the one that occasionally appeared over Percy's head. The blonde girl gasped. "It can't be." Percy's sword lowered slightly, his expression stunned. "That's my father's symbol. You've been claimed." "Claimed," Naruto repeated, bewildered. "What does that mean?" The teenagers around them had fallen to one knee, heads bowed in a gesture of respect. That made Naruto profoundly uncomfortable. "It means," Percy said, his voice a mixture of shock and growing anger, "that you're my brother. A son of Poseidon, god of the sea, Earthshaker, Stormbringer." "That's impossible," Naruto protested. "My father was Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage." The blonde girl rose to her feet, her gray eyes intense. "The gods have been known to use aliases when they interact with mortals. And they don't always stay to raise their children." Naruto shook his head vehemently. "No, you don't understand. My father died sealing the nine-tailed fox inside me the day I was born. He sacrificed himself to save our village." A moment of confused silence followed this declaration. "Nine-tailed fox," Percy repeated. "What are you talking about?" Before Naruto could explain, a new figure approached, a middle-aged man with a scruffy beard, except he wasn't entirely a man. Where his legs should have been, the body of a white stallion extended, making him a centaur. Naruto and Hinata stared in disbelief. "What seems to be the commotion?" the centaur asked, then stopped short when he saw Naruto and Hinata. His eyes widened at the still glowing trident above Naruto's head. Oh my, this is unexpected. Chiron, Percy said, this guy just showed up with his friend, claiming they came through some kind of dimensional rift. And now my father has claimed him. The centaur, Chiron, stroked his beard thoughtfully. A dimensional rift, you say? Fascinating. And concerning. He bowed formally to Naruto. Welcome, son of Poseidon, to Camp Half-Blood. It seems we have much to discuss. I'm not. Naruto began to protest, but Hinata laid a gentle hand on his arm. Naruto-kun, she said quietly. Remember what those masked shinobi said about the sea flowing in your veins. I think we should listen to what these people have to say. Naruto hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, but I want answers. As do we all, Chiron agreed. Come, let us retire to the big house. It seems tonight the fates have spun a most unusual thread. As they followed the centaur up the hill, Percy fell into step beside Naruto, studying him with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. So, brother, he said, testing the word. You really have no idea what's going on, do you? Naruto shook his head. None. 1 minute I'm in my world fighting weird masked ninja. The next I'm here getting attacked by a lion with a human face and a scorpion tail. A manticore, Percy supplied. That was Dr. Thorn. We've tangled with him before. He glanced at Hinata. Is she a daughter of Poseidon too? No, Hinata answered for herself. I'm a Hyuga. My abilities come from my clan's bloodline. The blonde girl had moved to Percy's other side, listening intently. Bloodline. You mean like genetic inheritance? That's fascinating. So in your world, power passes through families rather than from divine parents. Hinata nodded. The Byakugan, my visual prowess, has been passed down through the Hyuga clan for generations. I'm Annabeth, by the way, the blonde girl offered. Daughter of Athena, goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. The taller, aggressive girl snorted. Enough with the pleasantries. I still don't trust them. She glared at Naruto. I'm Clarice, daughter of Ares. If you try anything funny, see Spawn, you'll regret it. They crested the hill, passing beneath the branches of an enormous pine tree. Naruto felt a strange barrier as they crossed some invisible threshold, like walking through a curtain of energy. That's the camp's magical border, Percy explained. Noting Naruto's reaction. It keeps monsters out. Only demigods, gods, and specially invited mortals can pass through. Demigods? Naruto questioned. Half god, half mortal, Annabeth explained. Like Percy and me, and apparently, you. Naruto shook his head. I still don't buy it. I know who my parents were. The gods can be deceptive, Chiron said carefully as they approached a large blue farmhouse. It would not be the first time a god has disguised himself as a mortal, even one with an established identity. Inside the farmhouse, they gathered around a large table. A pudgy man in a garish Hawaiian shirt lounged in one corner, sipping from a can of Diet Coke. He eyed the newcomers with obvious disinterest. More brats, he sighed dramatically, as if I didn't have enough to deal with. This is Mr. D. Chiron introduced, camp director and, Dionysus, the man supplied impatiently. God of wine, madness, theater, blah blah blah. Endly serving time in this glorified babysitting service thanks to Zeus's overreaction to a little nymph situation. He narrowed his eyes at Naruto. Another one of Poseidon's, That barnacle-bearded oath-breaker has been busy. Naruto bristled at the man's tone but held his tongue. Something told him antagonizing someone introduced as a god wouldn't be wise, regardless of how unimpressive he appeared. Chiron gestured for everyone to sit. Now, Naruto and Hinata, perhaps you could explain exactly how you came to be here. Over the next hour, they recounted everything, the strange storm over Konoha, the dimensional rift, the masked attackers, and their cryptic words about Naruto's heritage. As they spoke, Chiron's expression grew increasingly troubled. This is most disturbing, the centaur said when they finished. It suggests that someone has discovered a way to travel between dimensions, and specifically targeted you, Naruto, due to your divine heritage. But that's just it, Naruto insisted. I'm not divine. I'm a Jinchuriki, a human vessel containing a tailed beast. My father was the fourth Hokage, my mother was Kushina Uzumaki. They died protecting me in the village. Perhaps, Chiron suggested gently. Your mother was indeed this Kushina. But it appears Poseidon may have been your true father, perhaps disguised as the man you believed was your father. No, Naruto slammed his fist on the table. My father sacrificed everything for me. He wasn't some god in disguise. Within his mindscape, Kurama stirred. Kit, calm yourself. I have existed for centuries. And there is much about the world, even worlds beyond our own, that remains mysterious. This may be difficult to accept, but the evidence suggests these people speak some version of the truth. Externally, Hinata placed a comforting hand on Naruto's arm. Naruto-kun, your chakra has changed. I can see it with my Byakugan. There's another energy flowing through you now, something that wasn't there before. The girl is right, Mr. D drawled, suddenly paying more attention. You're not like the other half-bloods. There's something else in you, something old and powerful. He tilted his head, and angry. Percy leaned forward. You mentioned a nine-tailed fox sealed inside you. What did you mean by that? Naruto hesitated, then sighed. In my world, there are nine-tailed beasts, massive creatures of pure chakra. The nine tails, Kurama, is the strongest. 16 years ago, he attacked our village. My father, the fourth Hokage, couldn't kill him. No one can kill a tailed beast permanently, so he sealed Kurama inside me. His newborn son, the sealing jutsu cost him his life. Silence fell over the room as everyone processed this information. A being of pure energy sealed within a human host, Annabeth mused. It's not unlike some of our ancient myths. The labyrinth contained the Minotaur, Pandora's box held all the world's evils. So you're saying you have a monster inside you? Clarice asked bluntly. Kurama isn't a monster, Naruto replied firmly. He's my partner now. We've come to an understanding. As if in response, a flicker of orange chakra emanated from Naruto's body, forming a faint silhouette of a fox around him for just a moment before dissipating. Mr. D sat up straighter, his eyes suddenly alert. Well, the boy brought a pet. How fascinating. This complicates matters, Chiron said thoughtfully. It may explain why Poseidon's claiming appeared now, rather than when you were younger. Perhaps the entity within you masked your divine scent, preventing monsters, and gods, from detecting you. Or maybe, Percy suggested, the gods don't have power in his world. Their influence doesn't extend to other dimensions. Annabeth nodded enthusiastically. That makes sense. The gods are tied to Western civilization in our world. In a separate dimension, different rules would apply. Naruto's head was spinning. The possibility that everything he believed about his parentage might be false was too much to process. I need proof, he said finally. More than just a glowing symbol and the ability to move some water. Percy studied him for a moment, then nodded. I get it. I didn't believe it at first either. He stood. Come on. Let's go down to the beach. If you really are a son of Poseidon, the ocean will respond to you in ways that can't be faked. Chiron nodded approvingly. An excellent suggestion, Percy. The rest of us will remain here and discuss the broader implications of this dimensional rift. Hinata, perhaps you would like to stay. Your perspective would be valuable. Hinata looked to Naruto, who nodded. Go ahead. I need to figure this out. Maybe some brother-to-brother time is what I need. He tried to smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Outside, the night air was cool and fresh as Percy led Naruto down a path toward the sound. Neither spoke until they reached the shoreline, waves lapping gently at the sand. So, Percy said finally. Ninja, huh? Naruto couldn't help but smile slightly. Yeah, and you're what did you call it? Demigod. Half-blood is what we usually say. Half human, half god. Percy kicked at the sand. It's not always fun. Monsters trying to kill you, gods using you for their errands, prophecies dictating your life. I know something about prophecies and destinies, Naruto said quietly. And about being different. Percy glanced at him. Because of the fox thing. Naruto nodded. Jinchuriki are feared in my world. Growing up, the villagers hated me. They saw me as the monster inside me, not as myself. Understanding flashed in Percy's eyes. That sucks. Here, being a half-blood is dangerous, but at least at camp, everyone's in the same boat. Well, except for which god is your parent? He paused. Speaking of which, Let's test yours out. He walked to the water's edge and gestured for Naruto to join him. The ocean is our father's domain. In it, we're stronger, faster. Our wounds heal quickly. We can breathe underwater, control water, communicate with sea creatures, lots of perks. Naruto approached the water cautiously. As his feet touched the surf, he felt an immediate surge of energy, similar to the sensation he'd experienced when fighting the manticore, but stronger, more focused. You feel that? Percy asked, noting Naruto's expression. That's Poseidon's blessing. Only his children experience it. Naruto waded deeper, the water swirling around his legs with unusual movement, responding to his presence. It felt welcoming, like reuniting with a long-lost friend. Try controlling it, Percy suggested. Just will the water to move. It's not like regular telekinesis, it's more like the water wants to obey you. Naruto raised his hand, focusing on the same sensation he'd felt earlier. A column of water rose before him, twisting into a spiral that reminded him of a Rasengan. The similarity gave him an idea. He channeled chakra through his other hand, forming a standard Rasengan, then brought the two together. The water enveloped the chakra sphere, creating a hybrid technique, a water Rasengan that pulsed with both chakra and this new divine energy. It spun in his palm, more stable and somehow more powerful than his regular technique. Whoa, Percy breathed. What is that? A Rasengan, Naruto explained. It's a technique my father, the fourth Hokage, created. Concentrated spiraling chakra. Percy shook his head in amazement. I've never seen anything like it. The way you combine your chakra, was it? With water control. That's new. Naruto released the technique, letting both the water and chakra dissipate. He stared at his hands, trying to reconcile this new power with everything he'd known about himself. I still don't understand, he said. If Poseidon is really my father, why claim me now? Why not years ago? And how did he even meet my mother in another dimension? Percy waded deeper until the water reached his waist. The gods work in mysterious ways, as Chiron likes to say. Which is just a fancy way of saying they don't explain themselves. He looked out at the horizon. Maybe there's a reason you needed to grow up there, with your ninja training and fox spirit, before learning about this side of yourself. Naruto followed him into deeper water. Those masked shinobi mentioned a prophecy about the son of the sea awakening. Percy grimaced. Great, another prophecy. Because those always turn out so well. He sighed. Look, I know this is a lot to take in. Finding out you're a half-blood. That everything you thought you knew about yourself might not be the whole truth. I've been there. It's different, Naruto said. You grew up in this world, at least. I don't belong here. Maybe you do, Percy countered. Maybe that's the point. Maybe you belong in both worlds. A thought occurred to Naruto. If I'm really Poseidon's son, can he help us get back home? Hinata and I need to return to our village. People depend on us. Percy's expression grew troubled. The gods don't typically do favors, even for their children. Especially big ones like interdimensional travel. He hesitated. But maybe this is important enough. If someone is creating rifts between dimensions, that's a serious threat. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant conch horn. Its sound carrying across the water. That's the alarm, Percy said, immediately alert. Something's wrong. They hurried back to shore and ran toward the camp, water streaming off their bodies. As they approached the central area, they saw campers gathering, weapons in hand. Chiron stood in the center, Hinata beside him, her Byakugan activated as she scanned the perimeter. What's happening? Percy asked as they joined the group. Boundary breach, Chiron explained grimly. Multiple monsters attempting to enter camp from the east side. Hinata turned to Naruto. They're not normal creatures. Their chakra, or whatever energy they possess, is chaotic, unstable. And, she hesitated, some of them have chakra networks. Some of them have chakra networks similar to shinobi, Hinata finished. As if they're hybrids of some kind. Naruto and Percy exchanged alarmed glances. Hybrid monsters? Percy asked. Like part Greek myth, part ninja world. Precisely, Chiron confirmed, his tail flicking anxiously. I fear the dimensional rift you came through may not have fully closed. It's allowing energies, and entities, from both worlds to intermingle. Clarice pushed forward, Ama. SSIVE electric spear crackling in her grip. Enough talk. Let's kill these things before they breach the boundary. Agreed, Chiron said. Percy, take the Poseidon and Athena cabins to the east perimeter. Clarice, Ares' cabin to the north as backup. Apollo and Hermes' cabins provide ranged support. What about us? Naruto asked, gesturing to himself and Hinata. Chiron studied them thoughtfully. Your abilities may be our best weapon against these hybrid creatures. Percy, keep them with you. Percy nodded and motioned for Naruto and Hinata to follow. Annabeth joined them, now wearing a NZE breastplate and Yankees cap tucked into her belt. Invisible cap, she explained, catching Naruto's curious glance. Gift from my mother. They raced toward the eastern boundary, where the massy pine tree Naruto had noticed earlier stood guard. As they approached, Naruto saw what they were up against. A dozen creatures trying to force their way through an invisible barrier. Some resembled lassical monsters, women with snake trunks instead of legs, massive dogs the size of rhinos with multiple heads, bull men with bronze axes. But others were clearly influenced by his world, a giant toad. With armor plating and what appeared to be explosive tags attached to its skin, a serpent with scales forming patterns like chakra sealing formulas, humanoid figures wielding weapons that glowed with unnatural energy. This is bad, Percy muttered, uncapping his pen which instantly transformed into a glowing bronze sword. I've never seen monsters like those before. Annabeth's gray eyes analyze the situation with tactical precision. The barrier's holding for now, but it's designed to repel Greek monsters, not whatever those ninja monsters are. Hinata stepped forward, Byakugan fully activated. I can see weak points forming in your barrier. The hybrid creatures are manipulating chakra to create openings. One of the humanoid figures, something like a cross between a human and a Hado, formed hand signs that Naruto recognized with alarm. Earth style. Fisher technique. He shouted in warning. They're trying to crack the ground beneath the barrier. The ground trembled as a crack raced from the creature toward the base of the pine tree. Percy reacted instantly, summoning water from a nearby stream to counter the attack, solidifying the earth. But more hybrid monsters attempting similar techniques at different points along the boundary. We need to take the fight to them, Naruto decided. Shadow clone jutsu. 20 perfect copies of Naruto materialized in puffs of smoke, drawing gasps from the gathered campers. Spread out and engage the ones using chakra techniques. Naruto ordered his clones. Priority on those trying to breach the barrier. The clones leapt into action, crossing the boundary to confront the hybrid monsters. Percy stared in amazement. That's a handy trick, he said. Are they solid? Completely, Naruto confirmed. Each one can fight independently. Annabeth's eyes gleamed with strategic appreciation. That changes everything. Hinata, can you direct the clones to the barrier's weakest points? With your visual abilities, you'll see vulnerabilities we can't. Hinata nodded. The most critical point is near the base of the tree. 3 hybrids are concentrating their attacks there. Percy turned to the gathered campers. Athena cabin. Form a defensive line around Talia's pine. Apollo cabin. Provide covering fire for Naruto's clones. As the campers moved into position, Naruto felt the strange new power rising within him again. The nearby stream seemed to call to him, offering its strength. Following instinct, he extended his hands toward the water, which rose in a massive wave that crashed over the boundary, sweeping several monsters backward. Percy grinned at him. Not bad, brother. But watch this. He closed his eyes in concentration, and the water responded more precisely, forming tendrils that wrapped around specific monsters. Constricting like pythons, the creatures howled in rage as they were immobilized. Not to be outdone, Naruto channeled chakra to his palm, forming a Rasengan. Then, drawn on his newly discovered water affinity, he infused the spiraling sphere with water, creating a larger, more powerful version of the technique he'd practiced at the beach. Water style. Rasengan, he called out, charging the nearest breach point. The hybrid technique tore through 3 monsters simultaneously, their forms dissolving into golden dust mixed with what looked like chakra smoke. The combination of demigod power and shinobi technique created an effect neither world had seen before. Hinata moved with graceful precision at his side, her gentle fist strikes disrupting the chakra networks of the hybrid creatures. rendering them vulnerable to the campers' celestial bronze weapons. When a massive serpent lunged at her, she spun into her defensive technique. 8 trigrams palm rotation. The perfect dome of chakra deflected the attack and sent the serpent flying backward. Nearby campers stared in awe at the display of skill. Annabeth had vanished, having donned her invisible cap. But the effects of her presence were evident as monsters suddenly fell with knife wounds to critical points. She reappeared briefly beside Percy. The hybrid creatures are coordinating their attacks, she reported. There's intelligence behind this, it's not random. A thunderous bellow drew their attention to the largest threat, a towering cyclops wearing what appeared to be modified samurai armor. Wielding a club wrapped in explosive tags, it crashed against the barrier repeatedly, each impact causing the defensive field to flicker dangerously. That one's mine, Percy declared, raising his sword. All help, Naruto offered, dispelling his remaining clones to conserve chakra. Together, the sons of Poseidon charged the massive creature. Percy slid beneath its legs, slashing at the tendons while Naruto leapt high. Forming another water Rasengan, the Cyclops roared in pain from Percy's attack, looking up just in time to receive Naruto's technique full in the face. The Explo, scion of chakra and water pressure blasted the creature backward, its form already beginning to disintegrate. But before it dissolved completely, it fixed Naruto with a single malevolent eye. The prophecy advances, it rumbled. Sea and shinobi, together at last. The ritual begins. Then it burst into golden dust, leaving only the strange armor behind. As the last of the monsters retreated or were destroyed, an uneasy silence fell over the battlefield. Naruto and Percy stood side by side, both dripping with water and monster residue, studying each other with new respect. Not bad, Percy admitted. That spiral water thing packs a punch. Your sword work isn't terrible either, Naruto returned with a grin. Annabeth joined them, removing her cap and studying the samurai armor the Cyclops had left behind. This is concerning. Look at these seals. They're a hybrid of Greek enchantments and what I'm guessing are your world's jutsu formulas. Hinata knelt beside her, examining the markings with her Byakugan. Yes, these are modified sealing techniques, but warped somehow. As if someone tried to translate our world's chakra formulas into your world's magical language. Chiron cantered up, his expression grave as he surveyed the aftermath. It is as I feared. The boundaries between our worlds are becoming permeable. These hybrid creatures are just the beginning. The Cyclops mentioned a prophecy, Naruto said. And a ritual. The masked shinobi who attacked us in our world said something similar. Chiron's tail flicked nervously. Then we must consult the oracle. If prophecy is indeed driving these events, we need to understand what we're facing. Rachel should be at her cave, Percy suggested. If anyone can make sense of this cross-dimensional prophecy stuff, it's her. Rachel, Naruto questioned. Our oracle, Annabeth explained. She channels the spirit of Delphi, which speaks prophecies through her. As they made their way back toward the camp center, campers gathered around, staring at Naruto and Hinata with undisguised curiosity. Whispers followed them, about the shadow clones, Hinata's Byakugan, and especially about Naruto's combination of chakra techniques with water control. Another son of Poseidon. Did you see those copies he made of himself? Her eyes. They have no pupils but she can see everything. Percy leaned toward Naruto. Welcome to demigod celebrity. Get used to it. They approached a cluster of cabins arranged in a U shape, each with distinctive architecture reflecting different gods. Percy pointed to a low building of rough sea stone with shells embedded in the walls. That's our cabin, he said. Cabin 3, Poseidon's. Naruto stared at the building, a strange feeling of connection washing over him. It feels familiar somehow. It should. It's in your blood. Percy's expression grew serious. Look, I know this is a lot to take in. Finding out you're a half-blood, that everything you knew about yourself might not be the whole truth. I've been there. It's more than that, Naruto said quietly. My whole identity was built around being Minato and Kushina's son, the Jinchuriki who would prove himself to the village. If Poseidon is really my father, who am I? Percy clasped his shoulder. You're still you. Trust me on this. Finding out about your godly parent doesn't change who you are, it just adds another layer. He grinned slightly. And hey, being Poseidon's kid has its perks. Though the deadly monster attacks are a bit of a downside. Hinata, walking beside Annabeth, overheard the exchange. Naruto-kun has always defined himself by his actions and his heart, not by his parentage, she said softly. This revelation doesn't change who he is at his core. Annabeth nodded in agreement. The best demigods aren't defined by their divine parents, but by the choices they make. She studied Hinata with analytical eyes. Your visual ability, the Byakugan, is fascinating. In our world, such gifts usually come directly from the gods, but you said it's hereditary in your clan. Yes, Hinata confirmed. The Hyuga clan has passed down the Byakugan for generations. It allows us to see chakra pathways, through solid objects, and at great distances. Like X-ray vision combined with energy detection, Annabeth mused. I wonder how such abilities evolved in your world without divine intervention. Their conversation was interrupted as they approached what appeared to be a cave entrance decorated with colorful beaded curtains and tie-dyed fabric. Outside sat a red-headed girl in paint-splattered jeans, sketching on a large pad. She looked up as they approached, her green eyes widening at the sight of Naruto and Hinata. Her pencil slipped from suddenly trembling fingers. Oh, she said softly. It's you. I've been drawing you for weeks. She turned her sketchpad around to reveal a startlingly accurate portrait of Naruto, surrounded by swirling water and what appeared to be the Nine Tails chakra. Beside him was a perfect rendering of Hinata, her Byakugan activated, standing in her gentle fist stance. Rachel, Percy said carefully, you've seen them before. The girl, Rachel, nodded, her expression dazed. In visions. So many visions. The boy with the sun in his stomach and ocean in his veins. The girl with eyes that see truth. She looked directly at Naruto. You're late. The whirlpool was supposed to arrive 3 days ago. Whirlpool. Naruto repeated. Your name, Annabeth realized. Naruto means maelstrom, or whirlpool, in Japanese, doesn't it? Before Naruto could respond, Rachel's eyes began to glow with an eerie green light. She stood rigidly, green mist swirling around her as she spoke in a voice that was not her own, ancient, powerful, and resonating with prophecy. Child of sea from world apart, where chakra flows and tailed beasts dwell, when dimensions tear and powers merge, the whirlpool sun shall break the spell. 5 shall journey across the veil, to mend what ancient hands have rent. Son of storm and daughter of sight, with wisdom's child and war's descent. The 5th shall be the oracle's voice, though forbidden path she must retrace, to find the seal that binds 2 worlds, before chaos claims both time and space. Rachel collapsed as the green mist dissipated. Percy caught her before she hit the ground, easing her on to a nearby bench as she blinked in confusion. Did I just? She began. Yeah, Percy confirmed. Full-on prophecy mode. About our new friends here. Chiron's expression had grown even more troubled as he listened to the prophecy. This is most concerning. A quest involving travel between dimensions. I'm not certain such a thing has ever been attempted. Travel between dimensions. Naruto seized on the implications. Does that mean we can get back to our world? It would appear so, Chiron said. But not without great risk. To mend what ancient hands have rent, suggests that the separation between our worlds was deliberate, a seal or barrier created long ago that someone is now trying to break. Annabeth had been muttering the prophecy to herself, committing it to memory. Son of storm and daughter of sight, clearly refers to Naruto and Hinata. Wisdom's child would be me, and war's descent must be a child of Ares, probably Clarice. And the 5th is obviously Rachel, Percy added. The oracle's voice. But what's this about a forbidden path? Rachel had regained her composure, though she looked pale. I don't know, but I've been having strange dreams for weeks. Places I've never seen, people speaking languages I shouldn't understand but somehow did. She looked at Naruto and Hinata. Your world, I'm guessing. The prophecy suggests Rachel must travel with you, Chiron said gravely. Which is unprecedented. The oracle has not left Camp Half-Blood in, well, a very long time. But I'm not a fighter, Rachel protested. I can't even use celestial bronze weapons effectively. Yet the prophecy is clear, Chiron insisted. Your role must be crucial. Hinata, who had been quiet throughout this exchange, suddenly spoke. In our world, there are those with prophetic abilities as well. They often serve as guides rather than warriors. Perhaps your role is similar, Rachel-san. Naruto nodded in agreement. And if the prophecy says we need 5 people, then that's what we need. He looked at Percy. Will you come too? You have more experience with this demigod stuff than I do. Percy hesitated, looking torn. I want to, but prophecies are specific. 5 shall journey, if I come. That makes 6. Percy must remain here, Chiron decided. With both sons of Poseidon away, the camp would be vulnerable. And someone must lead the defense if more hybrid monsters attack. Naruto felt a strange mixture of disappointment and relief. Part of him had hoped to have more time with this newfound brother, to learn more about their shared heritage. But another part recognized that this quest, this journey back to his own world, was something he needed to undertake on his own terms. So it's decided, Annabeth said. Naruto, Hinata, Rachel, Clarice, and myself will undertake this quest to seal the dimensional rift and prevent whatever chaos the prophecy warns about. Whoa, hold up, Clarice protested, having joined them during Rachel's prophecy. Who said I was volunteering for some crazy dimension-hopping suicide mission? The prophecy did, Annabeth replied simply. War's descent. That's you. Clarice scowled but didn't argue further. Despite her gruff exterior, Naruto sensed she wasn't actually opposed to the quest, perhaps even excited by the prospect of new challenges and battles. You'll need to prepare, Chiron advised. Gather supplies, weapons, ambrosia and nectar for healing. And you'll need to determine how to even begin such a journey. The prophecy mentions a seal that binds 2 worlds, finding that must be your first task. I might be able to help with that, Rachel said, flipping through her sketchbook. I've been drawing strange symbols for days. Like this one. She displayed a page showing an intricate circular design, part Greek lettering, part what appeared to be Fuinjutsu script from the shinobi world. Hinata gasped in recognition. That's similar to the seal array the masked shinobi created before we were pulled through the rift. And these symbols around the edge, Annabeth noted, they're ancient Greek, but in a dialect I've rarely seen. It refers to the confluence of energies, where divinity meets mortal force. Chakra, Naruto realized. It's describing the interaction between godly power and chakra. If this is the seal that was used to open the rift, Chiron mused. Then perhaps it can be reversed to close it. Or modified to allow controlled passage between dimensions. A new voice joined the conversation. Deep, rumbling, and strangely familiar to Naruto though he'd never heard it before. The boy is correct. Everyone turned to see a tall, powerfully built man with sun-darkened skin and sea-green eyes identical to Percy's. He wore casual Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt. But there was nothing casual about the aura of power that surrounded him. In his hand, he held a gleaming trident that pulsed with energy. Percy bowed his head slightly. Father, the god Poseidon had arrived. Lord Poseidon, Chiron said, bowing formally. This is an unexpected honor. The sea god's gaze was fixed on Naruto, his expression unreadable. When dimensions collide and ancient barriers weaken, even the gods must take notice. He approached Naruto slowly. You have grown strong, my son. Though not in the way I might have expected. Naruto stood his ground, meeting the god's gaze directly. Are you really my father? Not Minato Namikaze. Poseidon's expression softened slightly. Minato Namikaze was a great man, a hero in his own right. But yes, I am your true father. Though the circumstances of your birth are complicated. Complicated. Naruto's voice rose in anger. You abandoned my mother in another dimension. You let another man sacrifice himself thinking he was saving his son. Naruto, Hinata whispered in warning, but he ignored her. Do you have any idea what my life was like? Naruto continued. Growing up alone, hated by the village. With a tailed beast sealed inside me. Where were you then? Percy winced, expecting divine retribution for such disrespect, but Poseidon merely sighed, a sound like waves retreating from shore. The gods are bound by ancient laws. Naruto, direct intervention in our children's lives is forbidden. And in your case, there were additional complications. He glanced at the others. Perhaps we should speak privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of my friends, Naruto insisted. Poseidon raised an eyebrow at this defiance but nodded. Very well. Thousands of years ago, when the pantheons were still young. Boundaries between worlds were more permeable. Gods and other powerful beings could travel between realms with relative ease. During one such journey, I encountered a realm where chakra, not divine power, was the dominant force. The shinobi world, Hinata whispered. Yes, I was fascinated by this different form of energy, so similar to divine power in some ways, yet accessible to mortals through training rather than bloodline. During my time there, I met a remarkable woman from a clan known for their special chakra and longevity. An Uzumaki, Naruto realized. You met an Uzumaki. Poseidon nodded. Mito Uzumaki, in fact, the first Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. This revelation sent a shock through Naruto. Mito Uzumaki had been the wife of the first Hokage, a legendary figure from Konoha's founding era. That's impossible, he protested. Mito lived over 100 years ago. Time flows differently between dimensions, Poseidon explained. What was centuries for you was merely decades for us. Mito and I became close. She taught me about chakra, about the tailed beasts. I learned that the Nine Tails, Kurama, was not simply a Kriatu Re of destruction but a being of immense wisdom and power. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama stirred with interest. This explains much. I always sensed something unusual about Mito's chakra, Somethi, ing beyond even the typical Uzumaki life force. Poseidon continued, when it came time for me to return to my own realm, Mito and I created a seal, a barrier between worlds that would prevent catastrophic dimensional collapse while still allowing limited travel under specific circumstances. The seal was tied to both our bloodlines, designed to activate only when a descendant with both Uzumaki chakra and divine sea power came into being. Quote, me, Naruto said quietly. Eventually, yes, but the seal remained dormant for generations. I returned to the shinobi world several times over the centuries, though the journey became increasingly difficult as the barrier strengthened. During my last visit, I met your mother, Kushina. So Kushina really was my mother? Naruto asked, a flicker of relief in his voice. Yes, she was remarkable. Strong-willed, fierce, loving. Much like you. Poseidon's eyes held a distant fondness. When she became pregnant, I knew the child would be special, a bridge between worlds. But I also knew I could not stay. The barrier was weakening with each crossing, threatening both realms. And then the Nine Tails attacked. You weren't there, Naruto said, accusation clear in his tone. I couldn't be, Poseidon admitted. The dimensional pathways had become too unstable. But I watched from afar as Minato made his sacrifice, a mortal man showing godlike courage. He loved you as his own son, Naruto. Never doubt that. And the sealing of the Nine Tails inside me. An act of desperate necessity, but also unknowingly fulfilling an ancient pattern. The Uzumaki bloodline was always meant to bond with the Nine Tails' power, just as the sea god's bloodline was meant to command the waters. In you, those destinies converged. Naruto absorbed this information in silence, emotions warring across his face. Finally, he asked, why now? Why has the barrier between worlds weakened enough for us to cross over? Poseidon's expression darkened. Someone is deliberately tampering with the seal. An entity with knowledge of both worlds, seeking to harness the combined power of chakra and divine energy. The masked shinobi who attacked you were merely pawns, servants of a greater power. Do you know who? Chiron asked. Poseidon shook his head. Their identity remains hidden, even from divine sight. But their intent is clear, to merge the worlds, creating chaos, from which they can forge a new reality with themselves as ruler. So the prophecy is real, Annabeth said. We need to find the original seal and repair it. Yes, Poseidon confirmed. The origin, Al-Seal matrix exists in both dimensions simultaneously, a construct of chakra in your world, Naruto, and of divine power in ours. Both must be restored to stabilize the barrier. And where exactly is this seal? Clarice demanded. The nexus point lies beneath the sea, in a temple that exists in both realms at once. In your world, Naruto, it would be located in the whirlpool currents near the ruins of Uzushiogakure, the ancestral home of the Uzumaki clan. In our world, it manifests as a forgotten shrine in my domain, accessible only to those of my bloodline. So that's our quest, Naruto said. Travel to this temple, repair the seal, and stop whoever is trying to merge the worlds. Poseidon nodded. But be warned, the journey will be perilous. As the barriers weaken, more hybrid creatures will emerge. And the one behind this plot will not surrender their ambitions easily. He approached Naruto, extending his hand. In his palm lay a small trident pendant on a leather cord. This will help you channel your sea power more effectively, especially as you learn to balance it with your chakra. Naruto hesitated, then accepted the gift. As his fingers closed around the pendant, he felt a surge of connection to the sea god. Not forgiveness, not yet, but acknowledgement of their bond. There is one more thing, Poseidon said. The 9 tails within you, Kurama, will be affected by this journey. As you travel between worlds, his chakra will interact with divine energies in unpredictable ways. Be vigilant. Kurama and I are partners now, Naruto replied. We'll handle it together. Poseidon smiled slightly, a hint of pride in his expression. You truly are extraordinary, Naruto. Neither fully shinobi nor fully demigod, but something new, a bridge between worlds. He turned to Percy. Watch over the camp while your brother is away. The barriers here must be maintained. Percy nodded, though he looked disappointed at being left behind. I understand, father. Poseidon stepped back, his form beginning to shimmer with divine light. Prepare yourselves. Begin your journey at dawn. The fate of both worlds depends on your success. With that, he dissolved into sea mist, leaving behind only the scent of saltwater and the lingering sense of divine presence. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Chiron cleared his throat. Well, I believe we have our quest defined. You should all rest while you can. Tomorrow's journey will test you in ways none of us can fully predict. As the group dispersed to prepare, Naruto remained standing at the spot where Poseidon had vanished, the trident pendant clutched in his hand. Hinata stayed beside him, her quiet presence offering comfort without words. It's a lot to take in, Percy said, approaching cautiously. Finding out you're a half-blood is hard enough. Finding out you're from another dimension and the key to some ancient seal, that's next level. Naruto managed a small smile. I've dealt with prophecies and destinies before. At least this time I'm not alone. He glanced at Hinata, who returned his gaze with unwavering support. No, you're not, Percy agreed. You've got friends in both worlds now. He hesitated, then extended his hand. Including a brother, if you want one. Naruto looked at the offered hand for a moment, then clasped it firmly. I've always wanted a family. As the sun set over Camp Half-Blood, casting golden light across the cabins and Long Island Sound beyond, Naruto felt a strange sense of coming home, not to replace the home he knew, but to add another dimension to his understanding of himself. Son of the 4th Hokage and the red-hot habanero, Jinchuriki of the 9 tails. And now, son of Poseidon, the Earth Shaker, Lord of the Seas. That night, as he settled into his bunk in cabin 3. Surrounded by fountains and sea-scented air, with Percy snoring softly in the adjacent bed, Naruto whispered into the darkness, Who am I now, Kurama? The 9 tails stirred within his mindscape. You are who you have always been, Kit. Uzumaki Naruto, the #1 hyperactive, unpredictable ninja. The child of prophecy, the bridge between worlds. Your heritage does not define you, your heart does. Naruto smiled, his hand closing around the trident pendant as he drifted to sleep. Tomorrow would bring a new adventure, new challenges, new enemies. But also new possibilities, and perhaps, at last, answers about who he truly was meant to be. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. Blood of Gods, Will of Fire. Dawn broke over Camp Half-Blood, painting the Long Island sky in hues of amber and rose. Naruto stood at the shoreline, watching the sun's reflection dance across the gentle waves. The pendant Poseidon had given him hung around his neck, its weight unfamiliar yet somehow comforting against his chest. Behind him, the camp stirred to life. Early risers from Apollo cabin jogging along the beach, satyrs tending the strawberry fields, and the distant clang of metal suggesting that Ares' cabin had already begun their morning combat drills. It was nothing like waking up in Konoha, yet there was something about this place that resonated within him, a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. Couldn't sleep. Percy's voice came from behind him. Naruto turned to see his half-brother approaching, hair disheveled from sleep but eyes alert. Just thinking. Today we start trying to get home. Percy nodded. moving to stand beside him at the water's edge. I wish I was going with you. Feels wrong to stay behind when my brother's heading into danger. It's what the prophecy requires, Naruto replied. Though he felt a similar pang of regret. He'd barely had time to know this newfound sibling. Besides, you heard Poseidon. The camp needs protection. Yeah, Percy kicked absently at the surf. Listen, before you go, there's something I should teach you. A few pointers about being a son of Poseidon. For the next hour, as the sun climbed higher, Percy guided Naruto th. rough exercises to better control his newfound aquatic abilities. They started with basic water manipulation, raising columns from the sea, forming shapes, controlling currents, before moving to more advanced techniques. The key is understanding that the water wants to help you, Percy explained, demonstrating by effortlessly lifting a sphere of seawater and passing it between his hands like a ball. It's not just responding to commands, it's almost alive in a way. Naruto nodded, recalling how chakra sometimes felt similar, not merely a tool but an extension of himself. He raised his hand, concentrating on that connection, and a swirling column of water rose before him, dancing with more fluid grace than his previous attempts. That's it, Percy encouraged. Now try combining it with your, what did you call it? Chakra. Naruto focused, allowing his chakra to flow into the water column. The liquid began to glow with a blue-orange energy, spiraling faster as the two powers merged. The sensation was exhilarating, like discovering a new form of jutsu that had always been within his reach but never accessed. Incredible, Percy murmured. It's like the water becomes supercharged when you add your ninja energy. It feels right, Naruto agreed, shaping the energized water into a rough approximation of a Rasengan. Like this is what I was always meant to do. Try underwater breathing next, Percy suggested. That's one of our best perks. Naruto followed Percy into deeper water. As the waves closed over his head, he felt no panic, no need to hold his breath. Instead, his lungs adapted instantly, drawing oxygen from the water as easily as from air. He opened his eyes underwater, finding his vision perfectly clear despite the salt. Fascinating, Kurama commented within his mindscape. Your body is adapting to your awakened bloodline. The divine heritage was always there, but dormant until activated by proximity to its source. Naruto swam deeper, reveling in the newfound freedom. Fish approached him curiously, their darting movements somehow conveying messages he could almost understand, not quite words, but impressions and feelings. Newcomer, brother of the champion, son of the Sea Lord. When they finally surfaced, Naruto was grinning despite the gravity of the mission ahead. That was amazing. Percy smiled back, a flash of genuine brotherhood in his expression. Yeah, it never gets old. The breathing underwater thing has saved my life more times than I can count. His expression grew more serious. Which brings me to something important, demigod dreams. Dreams? Naruto asked, puzzled by the shift in topic. Half-bloods don't have normal dreams, Percy explained as they waded back to shore. Our dreams can be visions, warnings, sometimes even communication from the gods. If you start having weird, vivid dreams that seem significant, pay attention. They usually mean something. Naruto nodded, filing away this information. In my world, there are techniques that allow skilled shinobi to send messages through dreams or enter another's mindscape. Maybe it's related. They reached the beach to find Annabeth waiting for them, already fully equipped for the journey ahead. She wore lightweight armor over an orange camp t-shirt, a celestial bronze knife strapped to her belt, and a well-worn Yankees cap tucked into her back pocket. A backpack bulging with supplies rested at her feet. There you are, she called. The others are gathering at Talia's Pine. We need to leave within the hour if we want to reach the coast by nightfall. Percy's expression clouded slightly at the reminder of their imminent departure. I was just giving Naruto some pointers on sea god stuff. Annabeth's analytical gaze shifted between the two brothers. How's he doing? Like he's been doing it his whole life, Percy admitted. Turns out combining water powers with chakra creates some pretty impressive effects. I'm standing right here, Naruto reminded them with mild annoyance. Annabeth offered an apologetic smile. Sorry, daughter of Athena, we tend to analyze everything. She turned to Percy. Can you give us a minute? I need to go over the quest logistics with Naruto. Percy nodded, understanding the dismissal. Sure, I'll go help with the supplies. He clasped Naruto's shoulder briefly. Good luck, brother. Try not to die in another dimension. As Percy headed back toward the cabins, Annabeth's demeanor shifted subtly, her shoulders tensing, her gray eyes becoming more focused. There's something you should know before we leave, she said in a lower voice. Rachel's been having more visions, specific ones about your world. What kind of visions? Naruto asked, instantly alert. Fragmentary images, mostly. A man with a spiral mask. A red cloud symbol. Something about an organization hunting people like you, Jinchuriki. She watched his reaction carefully. She said they're called Akatsuki. Does that mean anything to you? Naruto's blood ran cold. Yes, they're after the tailed beasts. They've already captured several Jinchuriki. His expression hardened. If they're involved in this dimensional rift somehow, then the situation is even more dangerous than we thought, Annabeth finished. Rachel didn't want to mention it in front of everyone last night. She's still trying to interpret what she's seeing. I need to speak with her, Naruto said decisively. Annabeth nodded. She's waiting with the others. But Naruto, she hesitated, choosing her words carefully. This quest is already unprecedented, traveling between dimensions, dealing with hybrid monsters. If we're also facing organized enemies from your world who specifically target people like you, it just means we'll need to be more prepared, Naruto replied firmly. The Akatsuki are dangerous, but they're not invincible. I've faced them before. Faced who before? Naruto turned to see Hinata approaching, dressed in her standard ninja attire with her Konoha headband tied securely around her neck. She carried a small pack of supplies, minimalist and practical in typical shinobi fashion. The Akatsuki, Naruto answered grimly. Rachel's been having visions about them. They might be connected to the dimensional rifts. Hinata's pale eyes widened slightly. That would explain the masked shinobi who attacked us. The techniques they used weren't standard ninjutsu. We should join the others, Annabeth suggested. Chiron will want to give final instructions before we depart. As they walked toward Talia's pine, Naruto studied the camp that had been his temporary home. In just one day, it had begun to feel familiar. The lava-spewing climbing wall, the open-air pavilion where they'd eaten meals, the arena where he demonstrated shadow clones to awestruck campers. Under different circumstances, he might have enjoyed spending more time here, learning about this other half of his heritage. You're quiet, Hinata observed softly. Just thinking about everything that's happened. 2 days ago, I was just Naruto Uzumaki, ninja of the hidden leaf. Now I'm half god, with a brother I never knew existed, heading on a quest to save 2 worlds. He shook his head. Even for me, that's a lot to process. Hinata's fingers brushed against his, a brief, comforting touch. You're still you, Naruto-kun. No matter what bloodline flows through your veins, your heart remains the same. Her words echoed Kurama's from the previous night, and Naruto felt a surge of gratitude for her unwavering support. Thanks, Hinata. I'm glad you're here. A faint blush colored her cheeks, but her gaze remained steady. I'll always be by your side. They reached the massive pine tree that marked the camp's boundary. Clarice and Rachel were already waiting, along with Chiron and a cluster of other campers who had come to see them off. Clarice looked battle-ready in full Greek armor, a massive electric spear strapped to her back alongside a celestial bronze sword. Rachel, by contrast, wore simple jeans and a paint-splattered Harvard Art Department sweatshirt, a small backpack her only equipment. Ah, there you are, Chiron greeted them. We were beginning to wonder if you'd had second thoughts. No chance, Naruto replied. We need to get back to our world and stop whoever's messing with the dimensional barrier. Chiron nodded, his tail flicking anxiously. Indeed, Argus will drive you as far as the coast. From there, you must find the underwater temple Poseidon spoke of. He handed Annabeth a sealed scroll. Ancient texts referring to the sea shrine. They may help you locate the exact position. What about weapons? Clarice asked, eyeing Naruto and Hinata. Their regular stuff might not work against our monsters. Just like celestial bronze doesn't work on mortals. I've considered that, Chiron replied, producing 2 gleaming daggers. These are special blades forged from a mixture of celestial bronze and mortal steel. Blessed by Hecate, goddess of magic and crossroads. They should be effective against threats from either world. Naruto accepted one of the daggers, testing its weight and balance. Though he preferred kunai for throwing, the weapon felt good in his hand, almost as if it had been designed for him. Hinata took the other, examining it with her Byakugan. The metal has unusual properties, she observed. It channels chakra efficiently, almost like specially forged shinobi weapons. Lord Hephaestus himself assisted in their creation, Chiron explained. When I explained the unique nature of your quest, several gods took interest. Dimensional stability concerns even the Olympians. Percy stepped forward, offering Naruto a canteen. Nectar, he explained, the drink of the gods. It heals demigods, but use it sparingly. Too much will burn you up, literally. And these, Annabeth added, handing small golden squares to both Naruto and Hinata. Ambrosia, same properties as nectar, but in solid form. For emergencies only. Rachel had remained unusually quiet during these preparations, her green eyes distant as if seeing things invisible to the others. Now she approached Naruto, a sketchbook clutched in her hands. I've been drawing more symbols, she said, her voice slightly strained. They keep coming to me in flashes. I think they're parts of the seal we need to repair. She opened the sketchbook to reveal pages of intricate designs, swirling patterns that combined Greek lettering with what Naruto recognized as components of high-level fuinjutsu. So, Mi resembled the seal on his own stomach, while others incorporated completely new elements. These will be useful, Naruto acknowledged, studying the drawings. My godfather Jiraiya taught me the basics of sealing techniques. Between your visions and my training, we might be able to figure this out. Speaking of visions, he continued, lowering his voice, Annabeth mentioned you've seen the Akatsuki. Can you tell me more? Rachel's expression grew troubled. It's fragmented. A man in an orange spiral mask, controlling others from the shadows. Red clouds on black cloaks. Something about collecting beasts of immense power. She met his gaze directly. And you, at the center of it all, though sometimes you appear different, cloaked in golden light rather than the red energy I've seen around you before. Naruto exchanged a significant look with Hinata. The description of the masked man matched Tobi, the mysterious Akatsuki member whose true identity and powers remained largely unknown. Time to go, Chiron announced. Breaking the moment, Argus is waiting with the van. The farewell was brief but emotional. Percy clasped Naruto in a warrior's embrace, arm to arm. Come back in one piece, brother. We've got a lot of catching up to do. Count on it, Naruto promised. Other campers offered good wishes and gifts. A homemade medical kit from the Apollo cabin, enhanced flashlights from Hephaestus. A blessing from the Demeter children that packed their rations with extra nutrition. Even Clarice's siblings from Ares' cabin grudgingly presented Naruto with a celestial bronze-lined bracer. For the son of Poseidon who actually knows how to fight. As they prepared to cross the boundary, Chiron offered one final piece of advice. The prophecy mentions the seal that binds two worlds. Remember that seals can have multiple meanings. They can lock away, but they can also protect. Consider carefully before you attempt to alter what ancient hands have created. With that cryptic warning, they descended Half-Blood Hill to where a white van waited on the farm road below. The driver, a tall man covered in eyes, literally, eyes all over his body, nodded silently as they climbed aboard. That's Argus, Annabeth explained, noting Naruto and Hinata's startled expressions. Head of security. Doesn't talk much, but he sees everything. Literally, Clarice added with a smirk. As the van pulled away from Camp Half-Blood, Naruto gazed back at the receding pine tree and the demigods gathered beneath it. Percy raised a hand in farewell, and Naruto returned the gesture, feeling a strange mixture of loss and anticipation. One adventure was ending before it had truly begun, but another, the journey home, was just starting. So, Clarice broke the silence once they were on the highway. What's the actual plan here? Find this underwater temple, fix some magical seal, save two worlds, and get the ninja duo back home. Sounds simple enough. Her sarcasm was evident. The temple exists in both worlds simultaneously, Annabeth reviewed, unrolling the scroll Chiron had given her. According to this, it's located in the Atlantic, approximately 100 miles offshore from Camp Half-Blood. And in our world, Hinata added, it would be near the ruins of Uzushiogakure, the ancestral home of Naruto-kun's mother's clan. Which means we need to reach the exact coordinates in this world. Then somehow activate the dimensional passage to cross over, Annabeth concluded. The tricky part will be determining how to repair the seal once we find it. Rachel opened her sketchbook again. I think these drawings are pieces of the puzzle. They keep coming to me in dreams, fragments of an enormous ceiling array that spans both worlds. Naruto leaned over to study the drawings more carefully. Some of these match advanced Uzumaki's sealing techniques. See these spirals here? They're chakra anchors, designed to stabilize energy flow. And these Greek symbols, Annabeth pointed. They're ancient binding invocations, usually used in contracts with immortal beings. By blood and ichor bound, by will and power sealed. The landscape outside the van windows gradually transformed from suburban Long Island to coastal scenery. Argus drove steadily, his countless eyes constantly scanning their surroundings for threats. Occasionally, Naruto caught glimpses of strange creatures in the distance, things that might have been dismissed as tricks of light by ordinary humans, but which his enhanced senses recognized as monsters lurking just beyond the realm of normal perception. Your world? Hinata asked Annabeth after a period of contemplative silence, is it always like this? Monsters and gods interacting with humans? Annabeth nodded. The gods have always been entwined with human civilization. As humanity evolved, so did they, moving from Greece to Rome, then following the heart of Western civilization as it migrated. Now they're centered in America, with Mount Olympus literally above the Empire State Building in New York. Most mortals can't see through the mist, Rachel added. It's a magical veil that obscures the mythological world. They might see a hellhound as a stray dog, or a cyclops as an unusually tall person. But you can see through it. Naruto asked her. I'm a clear-sighted mortal, Rachel explained. Always have been, even before becoming the Oracle. It's not always a gift, I can imagine, Hinata said softly. The Byakugan sometimes reveals things I wish I hadn't seen. Rachel studied Hinata with newfound interest. Your eyes, they're always active. No, I must activate them consciously, Hinata explained, demonstrating by channeling chakra to her eyes, the veins around them bulging as her pupil-less gaze sharpened. Quote, the Byakugan allows me to see chakra networks, through solid objects, and at great distances. That's going to be incredibly useful, Annabeth noted. Especially if we're searching for a temple that exists partially in another dimension. Quote, the conversation fell into a natural rhythm as they continued their journey, sharing information about their respective worlds. Naruto and Hinata described the shinobi village system, the 5 great nations, and the concept of chakra, while Annabeth and Rachel explained Greek mythology, the gods, complicated family dynamics, and recent events like the Titan War that had nearly destroyed Western civilization. Clarice, though initially standoffish, gradually joined the discussion, particularly interested in comparing combat techniques. So you're saying, gee, these Jonin ninjas are like your special forces. How would they stack up against a child of Ares? It would depend on the Jonin, Naruto replied diplomatically, though privately he imagined Kakashi-sensei would make short work of most demigods, godly parents notwithstanding. Some specialize in stealth, others in direct combat, others in support roles. And your ranking? Clarice pressed, competitive edge evident in her tone. Technically, I'm still a genin, the lowest official rank, Naruto admitted. But that's just because I haven't had time to take the promotional exams between Ving the village and training with Jiraiya-sensei. Clarice snorted. A rookie. Great. Naruto-kun defeated Pain, who had destroyed our entire village, Hinata interjected with uncharacteristic assertiveness. He is recognized as one of the strongest shinobi of our generation, regardless of official rank. Naruto blinked in surprise at Hinata's defense, and a slight blush colored her cheeks as she realized everyone was looking at her. Huh, Clarice grunted, reassessing Naruto with newfound respect. Destroyed the whole village. Maybe you're not completely useless after all, Whiskers. Around midday, they stopped at a coastal diner for lunch. Inside, Naruto discovered that despite his new demigod status, his appetite remained typically ravenous. He ordered 3 bowls of seafood ramen, earning amused glances from his companions. What? He asked between slurps. Shadow clones burn a lot of chakra. I'm just surprised they have ramen here, Annabeth commented. Seems coincidental. Rachel's expression became distant again. Not coincidence. Convergence. The worlds are bleeding into each other already. Small things first. Menu items, weather patterns, snippets of language. She's right, Hinata confirmed. Her Byakugan briefly activated. The energy patterns here are fluctuating. As if reality itself is becoming less stable. This sobering observation hastened their departure. Back in the van, Argus drove with increased urgency, taking coastal roads that wound along cliffs overlooking the Atlantic. By late afternoon, they reached a small, secluded cove where the van could go no further. "This is where we part ways," Annabeth told Argus. "We'll signal if, when, we return." The many-eyed security chief nodded silently, handing Annabeth a package wrapped in waterproof material before driving away. "Underwater breathing apparatus," she explained, unwrapping it to reveal 4 sets of sophisticated-looking equipment. "For those of us who aren't conveniently sons of Poseidon. What about finding the temple?" Clarice asked. "The ocean's big, even with coordinates." Naruto fingered the trident pendant Poseidon had given him. "I think, I can feel it, like a pull beneath the waves." "Your divine GPS activating?" Clarice smirked. "Something like that," Naruto agreed, ignoring her tone. "It's similar to Sage Mode sensing, but more specific. Like the temple is calling to my blood." Rachel had wandered to the water's edge, her gaze unfocused as the waves lapped at her sneakers. "The oracle cannot pass beneath the waves," she murmured, her voice taking on the slightly hollow quality it had when delivering prophecy. "Not in this form." "What does that mean?" Annabeth asked sharply. "The prophecy clearly stated 5 would journey." Rachel blinked, seeming to return to herself. "I don't know. It's just a feeling. Like I'm meant to wait here, to watch for something." "The prophecy mentioned a forbidden path you must retrace," Hinata recalled. "Perhaps that comes later in the journey." "We can't leave her alone," Naruto said firmly. "Not if the Akatsuki or hybrid monsters might be around." "I'll be fine," Rachel insisted. "The oracle has certain protections. And I need to continue drawing these seal fragments. I see them more clearly near the ocean." After some debate, they reluctantly agreed to proceed with the underwater exploration while Rachel remained at the cove, protected by defensive measures Annabeth set up. Celestial bronze tripwires, alarm systems, and a small circle of Greek fire that would activate if anything hostile approached. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, the 4 prepared to enter the sea. Annabeth, Hinata, and Clarice donned the breathing apparatus, masks that fitted over the lower half of their faces. Connected to small tanks that somehow compressed far more oxygen than their size suggested. "Hephaestus cabin design," Annabeth explained. "They'll extract oxygen from water while filtering out salt and other contaminants. Should last indefinitely as long as we're submerged." Naruto, requiring no such equipment, removed his jacket and sandals, securing his weapons pouch and the special dagger Chiron had given him. The trident pendant seemed to pulse against his chest as he approached the water's edge. "Everyone ready?" he asked, receiving determined nods from his companions. "Then let's find this temple." They waded into the surf together, the cool Atlantic waters swirling around them. As the seafloor dropped away and they began to swim deeper, Naruto felt a surge of that now familiar power. The ocean welcomed him, buoying his body, enhancing his movements. Fish darted around the group, some pausing to regard Naruto with what seemed like deference before continuing on their way. "Son of the sea god," they seemed to whisper in his mind. "The temple awaits." Naruto took the lead, following the strange pull that grew stronger as they swam farther from shore. The ocean floor fell away beneath them, light diminishing as they descended into deeper waters. For Annabeth, Hinata, and Clarice, visibility would have become an issue if not for the small luminescent spheres Annabeth distributed, another gift from camp, designed to provide light in the darkest depths. For Naruto, however, vision remained perfect. Another perk of his newly awakened heritage, he supposed. The underwater world revealed itself in stunning clarity, colorful fish, swaying forests of kelp, the occasional curious dolphin or sea turtle. It was beautiful, alien, and somehow familiar all at once. "This element suits you," Kurama commented within his mindscape. "Perhaps better than I expected. The fox and the ocean seem contradictory, yet in you, they find balance." I'm just full of contradictions. Naruto thought back wryly. After nearly an hour of steady swimming, Hinata tapped his shoulder, pointing ahead. With her Byakugan active, she could see farther than any of them. Even Naruto with his enhanced underwater vision. He followed her gesture and felt his breath catch, despite being underwater. Rising from the ocean floor perhaps half a mile ahead was an enormous structure. A temple of classical Greek design but with distinctly Eastern elements incorporated into its architecture. Massive columns supported a triangular pediment, but these columns spiraled like whirlpools frozen in stone. The temple's facade featured both Greek statuary and what appeared to be stylized representations of the tailed beasts, including a prominent nine-tailed fox above the main entrance. Most remarkable, however, was the energy surrounding the temple. Even without Hinata's Byakugan, Naruto could perceive the swirling currents of power, part divine, part chakra, that enveloped the structure. In places, this energy field appeared solid and iridescent, like a protective bubble. In others, it wavered and thinned, revealing glimpses of what seemed to be the same temple. But in a different setting, surrounded by swirling maelstroms rather than the calm Atlantic depths. Naruto gestured for the others to follow as he swam toward the structure. As they approached, the differences between their perceptions became apparent. Annabeth and Clarice saw primarily a Greek temple dedicated to Poseidon, with tridents and hippocampi as predominant motifs. Hinata, viewing it through her Byakugan, saw an ancient Uzumaki shrine, the spiral clan symbol repeated throughout its design. Naruto alone perceived both aspects simultaneously, the temple existing in two states at once. Flickering between them like a visual illusion. They reached what appeared to be the main entrance, a massive doorway flanked by statues of trident-bearing mermen on one side and hand-seal-forming shinobi on the other. The door itself was sealed, marked with an intricate design that combined Greek lettering with Fuinjutsu script. Annabeth examined the door carefully, her breathing apparatus emitting small bubbles as she studied the inscriptions. She pointed to a circular indentation at the center of the door, then to Naruto's pendant, communicating without words. Understanding, Naruto removed the trident pendant and placed it in the indentation. It fit perfectly, but nothing happened. Frowning, he considered what might be missing. This temple honored both his bloodlines, Poseidon and Uzumaki. The pendant represented his divine heritage, but what about his shinobi lineage? Acting on instinct, he bit his thumb hard enough to draw blood, then pressed the bleeding digit against the pendant. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The door began to glow, first with sea-green divine energy, then with the red-orange of chakra. The two energies swirled together, forming a perfect yin-yang pattern before the massive door silently swung inward. Beyond lay a vast central chamber, somehow dry despite being underwater. As they stepped inside, the water seemed to part around the threshold, held back by an invisible barrier. They removed their breathing apparatus, looking around in wonder. The chamber was circular, its domed ceiling supported by 12 massive columns. The floor featured red an enormous mosaic depicting two worlds, one recognizably Earth with its continents and oceans, the other the shinobi world with its distinctive geography. Between them stretched a web of energy, connecting key points on both maps. At the chamber's center stood a raised dais, upon which rested what appeared to be a circular altar. The altar's surface was carved with the most complex sealing Ray Naruto had ever encountered, concentric rings of symbols that combined Fuinjutsu with divine script, spiraling inward toward a central point. This is it, Annabeth breathed, approaching the altar. The seal that binds the worlds. Clarice whistled low. And someone's definitely been messing with it. She was right. Parts of the seal were visibly damaged, symbols scratched out, connections broken. Entire sections missing altogether. Most concerning were the areas where new symbols had been carved, crude additions that disrupted the original pattern. Hinata studied the damage with her Byakugan. The energy flow is severely distorted. Instead of maintaining separation between the worlds, it's creating artificial connection points, dimensional rifts. Can we repair it? Naruto asked, examining the altar more closely. Maybe, Annabeth said, unrolling the scroll Chiron had given her. These texts describe the original purpose of the seal, to allow controlled, limited interaction between worlds while preventing catastrophic merger. And Rachel's drawings, Naruto added, retrieving the sketchbook they'd brought with them. They show fragments of the original design. As they began to analyze the damage more systematically, a new concern emerged. The temple, which had seemed abandoned when they entered, was showing subtle signs of recent activity. Scuff marks on the dusty floor, remnants of candles that had burned within the past few days, and most concerning, what appeared to be a small campsite in one of the side chambers, bedrolls, cooking equipment, and scattered scrolls. Someone's been living here, Clarice noted, hand moving to her spear. Recently, studying the seal, Annabeth guessed, examining the scrolls. These contain partial translations and annotations. Naruto picked up one particular scroll, his expression darkening as he recognized the handwriting. This is Akatsuki work. I recognize the notations from scrolls we recovered after confrontations with them. Hinata had moved to the entrance of another side chamber, her Byakugan active. Naruto-kun, she called urgently. You need to see this. They followed her into what appeared to be a research laboratory of sorts. Tables lined the walls, covered with scrolls, instruments, and jars containing strange specimens, some recognizable as components used in advanced ninjutsu, others clearly of mythological origin. Most disturbing was a central examination table, upon which lay restraints sized for a human subject. They've been experimenting, Annabeth said grimly, combining elements from both worlds. But why? Clarice demanded. What's the point of merging dimensions? Power. Naruto answered simply. Imagine controlling both chakra and divine energy simultaneously. Or unleashing tailed beasts in a world unprepared for them. Or bringing Greek monsters into a world with no celestial bronze to combat them. The ultimate weapon, Clarice understood immediately. A new kind of warfare no one would be prepared to counter. We need to repair this seal immediately, Annabeth decided. Before whoever's behind this returns. They returned to the central chamber and began the painstaking work of analyzing the damaged seal. Annabeth's architectural training proved invaluable in understanding the structural elements of the design, while Naruto's experience with Fuin Jutsu helped interpret the chakra components. Hinata's Byakugan allowed her to track energy flows within the seal, identifying critical junctures and blockages. Even Clarice contributed, her strategy. Mind recognizing patterns in the damage that suggested deliberate sabotage rather than random vandalism. It's like they were testing different modifications, she observed. Trying various approaches to see which would destabilize the barrier most effectively without completely destroying it. They don't want to destroy the worlds, Naruto realized. They want controlled access between them, enough to extract resources, import threats, or move forces, but not enough to cause total collapse. Military thinking, Clarice nodded. Smart, in a terrifying way. After hours of careful study, they developed a tentative understanding of the seal's original configuration and the changes needed to restore it. The process would require both divine energy and chakra, carefully balanced and applied to specific points in the array. I can channel the divine energy, Naruto said, with the pendant as a focus. And I can help direct your chakra flow with my gentle fist, Hinata offered. To ensure precise application, Annabeth and I will handle defense, Clarice decided. In case our mystery saboteurs return during the procedure. They were preparing to begin when a tremor shook the temple. Dust raining from the domed ceiling. A moment later, another, stronger tremor followed. Something's happening, Annabeth said, eyes widening. The dimensional barrier, it's fluctuating dramatically. Hinata activated her Byakugan, scanning beyond the temple walls. The energy field surrounding the temple is destabilizing. I can see rifts forming, similar to the one that brought us here but larger. Another violent shake, and part of the domed ceiling cracked, a chunk of stone crashing to the floor nearby. Someone's forcing the barrier open from the outside, Naruto realized. We need to start now, before. His words were cut off as the temple's entrance exploded inward. Water should have flooded the chamber, but instead, a swirling vortex of energy contained the breach. Through this maelstrom stepped three figures in black cloaks decorated with red clouds. Akatsuki. The first was immediately recognizable, an orange spiral mask covering his face, with a single eye hole revealing a Sharingan. Tobi, or Madara, or whatever name he currently used. The second was unfamiliar to Naruto. a slender woman with blue hair adorned with an origami flower. Her amber eyes cold and calculating. Conan, Pain's former partner. The third caused Naruto's blood to run cold, a tall figure with distinctive gray skin, small eyes, gill-like facial markings, and sharpened teeth reminiscent of a shark. Kisame Hoshigaki, the monster of the hidden mist, wielding his massive chakra-devouring sword, Samahata. Well, the masked man said, his voice light and mocking despite the situation. The Nine Tails Jinchuriki and the Hyuga princess. How convenient that you've saved us the trouble of capturing you. Beside the Akatsuki members stood two figures that didn't belong in the shinobi world. A tall, muscular woman with flaming hair that actually burned like real fire, and a man whose lower body transitioned into twin serpent trunks instead of legs. Both wore expressions of calculated malice. Camp and Scythian Dracine, Annabeth whispered, identifying the Greek monsters. High-ranking servants of Kronos during the Titan War. Interesting friends you've made, Madara. Naruto said, addressing the masked Akatsuki leader directly. Oh, I'm making all sorts of fascinating new acquaintances, the masked man replied cheerfully. Different world, same ambitions. Turns out chaos is a universal language. Clarice had shifted into battle stance, her electric spear crackling with energy. 5 against 5, I like those odds. The shark-like Akatsuki member grinned, showing rows of pointed teeth. The girls got spirit. Samahata likes spirited opponents, more chakra to feast on. Hinata, Naruto said quietly, how close are the rifts? Expanding rapidly, she replied, Byakugan still active. Multiple breaches forming around the temple. The barrier is critically weakened. Then we stick to the plan, he decided. Annabeth, Clarice, Hinata, hold them off. I'll repair the seal, alone. Annabeth asked sharply, I have the best chance. See God blood, Uzumaki heritage, and Kurama's chakra. His expression hardened with determination. Plus shadow clones to speed up the process. The masked Akatsuki leader tilted his head. How ambitious. You think you can repair what took us months to carefully dismantle? The Read powers of our world have already begun moving forces through the rifts. Soon, the boundaries will be meaningless. Not if I have anything to say about it, Naruto countered, forming his signature hand sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 20 clones materialized throughout the chamber, some immediately engaging the intruders while others surrounded the seal altar protectively. The original Naruto knelt at the altar, retrieving Rachel's sketchbook and the ancient scroll as reference materials. Battle erupted instantaneously. Clarice charged the serpent-legged man, her electric spear meeting his trident with a shower of sparks. Annabeth vanished beneath her invisibility cap, circling to strike at the flame-haired camp from unexpected angles. Hinata faced Conan, her gentle fist an ideal counter to the paper jutsu specialist. Kisame roared with laughter as he swung Samahata through 3 of Naruto's clones, the sword seeming to devour them rather than simply dispelling them. I was hoping for a challenge, Jinchuriki. The masked leader, meanwhile, observed the chaos with apparent amusement, occasionally allowing attacks to pass harmlessly through his body thanks to his space-time ninjutsu. His single visible eye, however, remained fixed on Naruto's efforts at the altar. At the seal, Naruto worked with desperate focus. The pendant hung from his neck, glowing with sea green energy that he channeled into specific points in the array. Simultaneously, he molded chakra into complementary patterns, following the original design gleaned from their research and Rachel's prophetic drawings. It won't work, the masked man called casually, dodging a strike from Hinata who had momentarily disengaged from Conan. The seal requires something you don't have, the blood of both creators. Poseidon and Mito Uzumaki established the barrier together, bound by blood sacrifice. Naruto didn't pause in his work, but his mind raced. Blood of both creators. He had Poseidon's blood in his veins. But Mito Uzumaki had been dead for generations. Unless, Kurama's voice resonated within his mindscape. My chakra contains the essence of all my previous Jinchuriki, including Mito Uzumaki. Her energy signature remains within me, just as your mother's does. Understanding bloomed. Naruto closed his eyes, diving deep into his mindscape where the Nine Tails waited, no longer behind bars but standing as an equal partner. Kurama, I need to access the chakra residue from Mito specifically. Can you isolate it? The massive fox nodded, 9 tails swirling around him. It won't be easy, but yes. Her chakra had a distinctive quality, precise, controlled, unlike your mother's fiery nature or your own wild determination. In the physical world, Naruto's body began to glow with a new energy, not the familiar red-orange of Kurama's standard chakra, nor the golden radiance of their perfectly synchronized mode. This was a subtle, purple-tinged aura that spiraled around him in patterns reminiscent of the Uzumaki clan symbol. Mito's chakra, the masked Akatsuki leader breathed, his mocking tone finally giving way to genuine surprise. Impossible. Even the 9 tails shouldn't be able to. You still underestimate us, Naruto replied, eyes opening to reveal pupils transformed to purple spirals. Kurama isn't just a weapon or a power source. He's the living history of all Jinchuriki, a bond across generations. The masked man abandoned his position, suddenly intent on stopping Naruto. Kisame. The Jinchuriki. Stop him now. The shark-like ninja disengaged from his ongoing battle with Clarice, swinging Samahata in a devastating arc toward Naruto. Before the blade could connect, Hinata intercepted, her palms glowing with chakra. 8 trigrams vacuum palm. The concentrated burst of chakra caught Kisame mid-leap, sending him crashing into one of the temple's support columns. I won't let you harm Naruto-kun, Hinata stated, sliding into her gentle fist stance between Kisame and the altar. The masked Akatsuki leader attempted to phase through her, his unique space-time jutsu allowing him to become intangible. But Hinata's Byakugan tracked the subtle chakra of fluctuations that preceded this technique. 8 trigrams 64 palms. Her strikes were precisely timed, hitting him during the millisecond intervals when he had to solidify to maintain his jutsu. Several blows connected, disrupting his chakra network and forcing him back. Impossible, he hissed. You shouldn't be able to track my movements. The Byakugan sees all, Hinata replied simply, continuing her assault. At the altar, Naruto had established a connection with the original seal matrix. The purple-tinged chakra, Mito's essence channeled through Kurama, flowed into specific points in the array, while divine energy from his Poseidon heritage filled others. Where the two energies met, the damaged portions of the seal began to regenerate, ancient symbols reappearing as if being drawn by an invisible hand. It's working, Annabeth called, momentarily visible as she drove her celestial bronze dagger into the flame-haired camp's shoulder, causing the monster to shriek in pain. The temple trembled again, but differently now, not the violent quaking of destabilization, but a deep, resonant hum of power awakening. The mosaic floor began to glow, the two depicted worlds LSING with light as the connections between them stabilized. Kisame had recovered from Hinata's attack and charged again, Samahata unwrapping to reveal its true scale-covered, mouth-filled form. That sword won't save you, little Hyuga. Before he could reach her, water erupted from the temple entrance, not flooding in, but shooting forward in controlled tendrils that wrapped around Kisame like living restraints. The shark nin struggled against the liquid bonds, his strength enormous but matched by the power controlling the water. What? He snarled in confusion. What jutsu is this? Not jutsu, came a new voice as a figure entered through the damaged doorway. Just a family trait. Percy Jackson stood in the threshold, controlling the water restraining Kisame with casual mastery. Behind him came Rachel Elizabeth Dare, her eyes glowing with the green light of prophecy, and a dozen camp half-blood demigods armed with celestial bronze weapons. Sorry we're late, Percy called to Naruto. Rachel had a vision of you needing backup. Thought we'd bring the cavalry. The battle's tide turned instantly. The camp half-blood reinforcements engaged the Greek monsters with practiced efficiency. While Percy maintained his watery grip on Kisame, Rachel moved purposefully through the chaos, untouched by the fighting as if protected by some divine shield, making straight for the altar where Naruto worked. The final piece, she said, her voice layered with the oracle's power. She placed her hand on the altar beside Naruto's, and green prophetic energy joined the mixture of chakra and divine power already at work in the seal. The masked Akatsuki leader, seeing his plan unraveling, made a final desperate attempt to reach the altar. He phased through Hinata's renewed attack, oming solid just as he reached Naruto, only to find himself face to face with Clarice, her electric spear aimed directly at his single eye hole. Surprise! she growled, thrusting forward. The mace. D-man jerked backward to avoid being impaled, but the spear's electric charge still connected, disrupting his jutsu long enough for Hinata to land a precise gentle fist strike to his chest. 8 trigrams vacuum palm. The combined attack sent him flying backward, his mask cracking from the impact. He crashed into the far wall, slumping momentarily before rising again, half his mask now broken. A way to reveal a face that caused Hinata to gasp in recognition. That's Obito Uchiha, the man confirmed, his exposed Sharingan eye narrowing. Though that name belongs to a dead man. At the altar, the seal had begun to resonate with increasing power. The concentric rings of the array rotated independently, aligning into new configurations as the repair work progressed. Naruto, still Chan, healing both Mito's chakra and his divine heritage, felt the strain intensifying. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought to maintain precise control over the conflicting energies. Almost there, Rachel encouraged, her hand still on the altar. The worlds are rebalancing. Throughout the temple, reality itself seemed to waver. Glimpses of the shinobi world flickered across the walls, whirlpool currents, red torii gates. Uzushio ruins, superimposed over the Greek architecture. The dimensional barriers were thinning, but in a controlled, structured way rather than the chaotic rifts created by the Akatsuki's tampering. Obito assessed the situation with calculating precision. Konan, Kisame, were retreating. This phase of the plan is compromised. Retreating, Kisame protested, still struggling against Percy's water restraints. I'm just getting started. The dimensional pathways are shifting, Obito responded sharply. If we don't leave now, we risk being trapped on the wrong side of the barrier. Our primary objective is already accomplished. This ominous statement gave everyone pause. What primary objective was he referring to? Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Obito activated his space-time ninjutsu, creating a swirling vortex that enveloped Konan. The paper user disappeared into the dimensional pocket as Obito turned to extract Kisame as well. Stop them, Annabeth shouted, but it was too late. Despite Percy's best efforts, Kisame broke free just long enough for Obito to extend his technique, pulling the shark nin into the same dimensional void. Before following them, Obito fixed his gaze on Naruto one last time. Enjoy your victory, Nine Tails. It changes nothing. The seeds have already been planted in both worlds. Next time we meet, the harvest will be ready. With that cryptic warning, he too vanished into the swirling vortex, which collapsed in on itself and disappeared. The Greek monsters, abandoned by their allies, fought with renewed desperation but were quickly overwhelmed by the combined forces of demigods and shinobi. Within minutes, both had been dispatched, the serpent-legged Dracine dissolving into golden dust, the flame-haired camp banished back to Tartarus. At the altar, the seal repair reached its culmination. The final symbols locked into place, and a pulse of energy radiated outward from the center, washing over everyone in the chamber. The temple stopped shaking, the dimensional fluctuation stabilized, and the damage to the ceiling mysteriously reversed itself, stones flying back into place as if time were rewinding. Naruto slumped forward, exhausted from the immense chakra expenditure. The purple aura of Mito's chakra faded, and his eyes returned to their normal blue. Rachel likewise swayed on her feet, the prophetic glow dimming as she returned to her normal state. You did it, Percy said, approaching the altar. The barrier's stable again, but at what cost? Annabeth asked, surveying the temple. Obito said their primary objective was already accomplished. What did he mean? Hinata, still maintaining her Byakugan, examined the seal closely. The barrier is repaired, but differently than before. It's more permeable now, though in a controlled way. Passage between worlds is still possible, just regulated. That was the original design, Naruto realized, remembering the ancient scroll's description. Not complete separation, but managed connection. Points where crossing could occur under specific circumstances. So we haven't locked the worlds apart, Clarice summarized. We've just installed better doors. Which means they can still cross over, if they find the right keys, Percy concluded grimly. Rachel had been silent, her gaze distant as if still processing the prophetic insights that had guided her here. Now she spoke, her voice tired but clear. The prophecy wasn't about permanently separating the worlds. It was about restoring balance. To mend what and see. NT hands have rent doesn't mean closing all connections, it means repairing what was damaged. And we did that, Naruto confirmed, standing shakily. The chaotic rifts are closed. Any crossing now old require specific knowledge and probably a lot of power. Knowledge they already have, Annabeth pointed out. The Akatsuki have been studying this temple for months. Clarice shrugged, resting her spear on her shoulder. So we kick their butts again if they try anything. No big deal. Percy turned to his brother with newfound respect. That was some serious power you were channeling. The water responded to you even better than it does to me. Different, not better, Naruto corrected, somewhat embarrassed by the praise. I was tapping into both Poseidon's power and Uzumaki's sealing techniques simultaneously. Plus Kurama's help. Speaking of which, Hinata interjected gently, how is Kurama? That level of chakra manipulation must have been taxing. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, checking on his tenant. Exhausted but satisfied, he says channeling Mito's chakra signature was like revisiting an old, well, not friendship exactly, but respected partnership. And you? Percy asked, concern evident. Are you okay? Quote, I'll be fine, Naruto assured him, though the fatigue was evident in his voice. But we need to figure out our next steps. The temple exists in both worlds simultaneously, right? So theoretically, we could use it to return to the shinobi world. The pathways are stabilized now, Rachel confirmed. Passage should be possible for those the seal recognizes. Which would definitely include you, Annabeth said to Naruto. With both Poseidon and Uzumaki blood. Naruto nodded, but his expression was troubled. The question is whether we should go back immediately or stay longer to investigate what Obito meant about seeds being planted. And who comes with you? Percy added. The prophecy mentioned 5 crossing the veil, but didn't specify whether the same 5 would return. A thoughtful silence fell over the group as they considered the implications. Finally, Hinata spoke up, her quiet voice carrying unexpected authority. We should return to Konoha as soon as possible. If the Akatsuki have found ways to bring Greek monsters into our world, the village could be in danger. They'll have no knowledge of how to combat such threats. She's right, Clarice reluctantly agreed. Same for our side. If ninja techniques start showing up in the mortal world, celestial bronze won't be enough. So we need messengers for both worlds, Annabeth reasoned. People who understand the threats and can prepare defenses. I'm going back with Naruto and Hinata, Rachel announced with surprising firmness. The prophecy is clear about that. The oracle's voice, though forbidden paths she must retrace. Are you sure? Percy asked, concerned. The oracle has never left our world before. Which is exactly why I need to go, Rachel insisted. I've been seeing visions of the shinobi world for weeks. There's something there I'm meant to find or do. The prophecy isn't complete yet. And the other two, Clarice prompted. Wisdom's child and war's descent. That's Annabeth and me. Annabeth looked torn. I should stay to report to Chiron and Olympus. They need to understand what we've learned about the dimensional barriers. I'll do that, Percy volunteered. I can explain everything to Chiron and my father. If the prophecy says you're supposed to go, Annabeth, then you should go. Naruto watched this exchange thoughtfully. These demigods had only just met him. Yet they were willing to journey to an unknown world to help address a threat to both their realms. It reminded him of the spirit of cooperation that had emerged during the Fourth Great Ninja War, different villages setting aside rivalries to face a common enemy. All right, he decided. The 5 of us will return to the shinobi world through the temple's pathway. Percy, you'll take what we've learned back to Camp Half-Blood and prepare defenses against potential shinobi incursions. One problem, Clarice pointed out. How do we get back here once we've done whatever we need to do in Ninja Land? Will this temple thing work both ways? It should, Naruto confirmed. The repaired seal creates stable pathways between specific corresponding points in both worlds. If we can find the Uzushio location of this temple in my world, we should be able to use it to return. And I can lead us there, Hinata added. With my Byakugan, I can track the dimensional energy pathways. With their course decided, they began preparations for the crossing. The other demigods who had accompanied Percy would return to camp with him, carrying samples of shinobi Weepo. NS and scrolls found in the temple for study. Naruto, Hinata, Rachel, Annabeth, and Clarice gathered at the altar, which now hummed with steady, balanced energy, the seal functioning as originally designed. So, how exactly does this work? Clarice asked, eyeing the altar skeptically. Do we click our heels 3 times and say, "There's no place like home"? Actually, it's not that different, Naruto replied with a slight smile. He placed his hand on the central point of the seal, channeling a small amount of chakra. The entire array illuminated in response, concentric rings beginning to rotate slowly. The seal recognizes me. Now each of you, place your hand on the altar and focus on our destination, the shinobi world. One by one, they did as instructed. As Hinata's hand joined the others, completing the circle, the seal's rotation accelerated. The temple around them began to blur, reality itself seeming to thin as the dimensional pathway opened. This is it, Naruto said, meeting each of their gazes in turn. Last chance to back out. And miss the chance to fight ninja monsters. Not happening, Clarice replied with a fierce grin. The architectural possibilities alone make this worth it, Annabeth added. Though her grip on her dagger betrayed a healthy nervousness. Rachel simply nodded, her green eyes clear and certain. This is where the prophecy leads. Then I'll see you when you get back, Percy said, clasping Naruto's shoulder in farewell. Try not to start any divine wars while you're gone, brother. No promises, Naruto returned with a grin. The seal reached its maximum rotation speed, light engulfing the 5 figures around the altar. There was a sensation of rushing movement, like being pulled through water at incredible speed, and then they stood in the same temple, yet utterly transformed. Gone was the Greek architecture, replaced entirely by traditional Uzumaki design. Outside the entrance, visible through ancient torii gates, swirled the legendary whirlpools that had given Uzushiogakure its name. The temple was partially submerged, built into a seaside cliff rather than under the ocean, with sunlight streaming through open sections of the ceiling. We made it, Hinata confirmed, her Byakugan scanning their surroundings. This is definitely our world. Incredible, Annabeth breathed, already examining the architectural differences. The temple maintained its basic structure but adapted to the dominant aesthetic of this dimension. Where exactly are we? Clarice asked, adjusting her grip on her spear as she surveyed the unfamiliar environment. The ruins of Uzushiogakure, Naruto answered, a strange emotion welling within him as he recognized the ancestral home of his mother's clan. The land of whirlpools. It was destroyed during the Second Great Ninja War. Rachel walked slowly toward the entrance, her expression distant. There's something here, something calling to me. She paused, turning back to the group with sudden clarity. The Oracle of Delphi isn't the only prophetic power in existence. Your world has its own seers, its own connection to fate. The Fire Temple monks, Hinata suggested. Or the Great Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. Yes, Rachel nodded. And there's a connection between them, a shared source that transcends dimensional boundaries. That's part of why I'm here. Before they could discuss this further, Hinata stiffened, her Byakugan focusing on something beyond the temple walls. We're not alone. Multiple chakra signatures approaching rapidly from the northeast. Shinobi, moving in standard formation. Friendly, Naruto asked, immediately alert. Hinata relaxed slightly. Yes, I recognize Kakashi-sensei's chakra signature. And Sakura-san. They must have been tracking dimensional disturbances. Your friends? Annabeth asked. Naruto nodded, relief evident. My teacher and teammate. They can help us get back to the village and warn the Hokage about what's happening. Clarice rolled her shoulders, adjusting to the different feel of this new world. So what's the plan? We tell your ninja leaders about dimensional invaders, then what? Then we prepare, Naruto said grimly. If Obito meant what I think he did about seeds being planted, both our worlds are about to face threats unlike anything they've seen before. We'll need to forge an alliance between shinobi and demigods. An unprecedented cooperation, Annabeth mused. But potentially revolutionary. The combined knowledge of chakra techniques and divine powers could advance both societies. Or destroy them both if it falls into the wrong hands, Rachel cautioned. The prophecy isn't complete. Before chaos claims both time and space. We've repaired the seal, but the danger hasn't passed. Naruto's expression hardened with determination. Then we'll face it together. As shinobi, as demigods, as friends. He touched the trident pendant at his neck, a symbol of his dual heritage. They always believed bonds between people are the true source of strength. Now those bonds will extend across dimensions. Outside, they could hear voices approaching, Kakashi calling Naruto's name, Sak. Ura's relieved exclamation as Hinata's chakra signature was identified. The shinobi world was about to experience its first official contact with demigods, just as Camp Half-Blood would soon be learning about chakra and ninjutsu. Two worlds, once carefully separated, now linked by bridges of understanding and cooperation. And at the center of it all stood Naruto Uzumaki, Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. Son of the fourth Hokage and Kushina Uzumaki, and now revealed as a son of Poseidon, the Earthshaker, god of the seas. Blood of gods, will of fire, a new chapter was beginning. Chapter 2 End.